What do you want?
It's not that simple.
What do you
want? Mended light.
What do you want?
You were a great Ryan Gosling. That was fantastic.
It comes naturally.
Welcome back to Marriage Problems, which is a new series that we're doing to get really real about the things that we've gone through, and hopefully our hard lessons you won't have to learn the hard way, or if you have learned them the hard way or are learning them the hard way, you feel like you're not alone. So we are starting with this series on marrying your opposite. And we talked about the personality types, which are?
Dreamer, healer, closer, thinker.
And healers are your very compassionate, caring, nurturing folks who love comfort. They're also overly sensitive and prone to be offended and sometimes struggle with getting things done because they're just worried about the people.
And then closer, which is the opposite of healer, but their strengths are getting it done no matter what, at all costs. They're achievers, they're doers. We praise them in our society and we have a lot of respect for them. The flip side is they can be bulldozers. They generally seriously lack patience. And if they think you're not qualified, they'd rather just do it themselves.
Then you have dreamers, which are the fun-loving, zany, wild personality types who have all sorts of ideas, love humor, jazz hands, love performance, love adventure, love big crowds, love attention. And the flip side of a dreamer is that they struggle with follow-through and attention to detail. And sometimes they joke when they should be serious. And
then lastly, we have thinkers. They are all about logic and understanding. They read those instruction manuals. Everything is very black and white, right and wrong. There tends to be a lot of judgment. They can be seen as emotionally cold and distant.
So thinkers tend to be the polar opposite of dreamers, and healers tend to be the polar opposite of closers. And you tend to have one or two dominant personalities. So I am a dreamer healer, and you are?
A thinker closer.
And now you know why we call this segment Marriage Problems.
Come on. Don't make it weird.
So diving into my experience really fast, I have a history of avoiding things that make me uncomfortable. I mean, things, I'm scared of them, scared to try new things, scared to develop new skills. Part of that comes from being bullied really, really bad as a child.
Well, it brings up fears of rejection.
Yeah.
And rejection is one of the worst kinds of pain a dreamer or a healer can experience.
Yeah.
If a thinker or a closer is rejected and they're like, well, these things happen.
Or they think that idiot doesn't know what's good for them. I know my worth. Right. But a dreamer and healer is going to take the rejection very personally. And so I tend to stay in my lane and do the things that I'm comfortable with. And the fact is, I'm smart enough and I'm well-read enough. You know, the high school, I did really well in high school, even though I didn't work very hard.
Yeah.
And I did almost as well in college. But college is harder. I had to step up my game, but for the most part, I could still goof around with my friends.
Yeah.
And get by. Like when I stumbled, I could get by on charm with the professors. Like they really liked me because I'm a pretty likable person, right? And then all of that, just like I hit a wall in graduate school because I didn't have the focus and I didn't have the work ethic and I didn't have the follow through to do things that were uncomfortable and painful for me. And in graduate school, my professor pulled me aside and he says, look, clinically, you're fantastic. You're great with the therapy clients. You're great with actually helping people, but you're struggling in your studies and you're struggling with the work the university has hired you to do as part of your assistantship. An assistantship is a combination of an internship and a scholarship. You work for the university and they waive your tuition. And they say, we're about ready to let you go.
He's on the naughty list.
You can stay on and finish your degree, but you will have to pay your tuition. And I was terrified. And he says, the reason I'm pulling you aside is because it takes one to know one. He says, let me guess. You like to goof off and have fun. You're happy to work hard as long as it's something that you're passionate about. And the things that you're not passionate about, you'll just procrastinate until the last moment. You have a hard time with follow through. You let people down. You don't mean to, but you just like time gets away from you. How does this happen? And for a long time, you've gotten by on charm and likability.
My God, it's like you've known me all my life.
And he says, it takes one to know one. I'm the same way. He says, it's going to cost you. It's going to cost you everything unless you work through it. And he says, I've convinced everybody else to give you an extra month. And I came alive that month and worked so hard that month and got my rear in gear, and it was a great thing for me. The reason I'm being vulnerable and sharing this with you is because that showed up in our marriage time and time again, just like in graduate school, where I would make promises and not follow through. And it was never malicious. I never made a promise that I intended to break. I was just overconfident or overly optimistic and didn't count the cost. And then when the rubber met the road of actually following through, I would put it off, and then there wouldn't be time. Now that I'd procrastinated it too long, there wouldn't be time to do it or to do it well. And that was very, very problematic in our marriage, because you are somebody who's very structured, and you lay things out exactly how they need to be done and when they need to be done. And a dreamer has a lot of excuses for why this didn't work or why I couldn't get this done. And a closer will make no excuses. They will find a way, and they will sacrifice their own downtime, relaxation, rest, sleep, whatever, because they made a commitment and they'll follow through, and it caused a lot of friction between us.
Well, and so for my values, like what are my needs? And once again, this goes back, if you watched the previous videos, about expectations, right?
Yeah.
And my personality type. Thinkers very much so value respect, and they value follow through. Both closers and thinkers value follow through and doing what you say that you're going to do.
That's unacceptable, so don't give me any excuses and do it. Do it! Just shut up and get it done!
It's not even like, oh yeah, that's important, it's nice. No, it's a need of mine.
Yeah.
I'm not going to feel loved. I'm not going to feel valued. I'm not going to feel respected, and I need to feel respected.
You would say to me, you don't respect me.
Yeah.
And I would say that's ridiculous, because in my mind, respecting someone is admiring them and looking up to them.
Yeah.
And I definitely had that for you.
Right.
But for you, respect is no, this is what I need to feel respected. It's the follow through.
Right. And one of my love languages, see, and we have a course on love languages, and Gary Chapman's book on love languages is amazing.
Yeah.
And totally helps us understand one another and meet each other's needs. And here's the interesting thing. The different love languages look different for different personality types,
Yeah.
right? And so one of my love languages is acts of service,
Yeah.
right? And so that follow through was critical, but also integrity is my number one value, right? And so to be in a relationship where there lacks follow through, from my perspective, lacks integrity.
Yeah.
And that was one of the premarital conversations that we had, and then through our married life, is I need honesty. I have to have honesty. And you didn't see how there was dishonesty in how you were showing up in our relationship.
Well, you say you're going to do something, you don't do it. That's dishonest, right? From a closer's perspective, from a certain point of view. From a dreamer's perspective, no, I wasn't dishonest because I had every intention of doing it. I wasn't lying to you, right?
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
A certain point of view?
And then it's like, but you didn't do it. But what it created that I was completely not aware of, right? And in the middle of all this, it's like, we're building a business, we're raising children, right? Like, we're trying to do all the things, and we're trying to show up in the best possible way. But what I didn't realize is that it was creating a type of insecurity in my life, and a lack of safety in my life that was eroding my foundation.
Is the bedrock of my life eroding beneath me. Eroding.
Closers do not struggle with confidence. It's something that
They're
is
the most
easier.
they're the most naturally confident people there is.
They're the most naturally confident, and especially the combination of like a thinker closer, right? Because they're going to evaluate everything and then do it in the best possible way, right? And so it gives this perception of like, well, you're just good at everything. Well, it eroded my confidence in what I could accomplish and what I could do, and in the doing is where I thrive, right?
Yeah.
It's like I learned, I grew my healer, basically being a stay-at-home parent. I learned about the different needs and the different personality types, and to meet those needs and to balance those needs, which is no small feat. So
No, it's not. In fact, if I may interject
Yeah,
something really
go ahead.
fast, we're going to do a video on you stepping into healer, right? And stepping stepping into compassion and
yes.
But here's the difference. Like, I struggled because you were very blunt and very terse, and sometimes you wouldn't say mean, but to someone like a healer, like
it totally came off as mean.
As mean, like you saying the same thing to a closer would just be like straight talk, right? But to a healer, it's devastating. The biggest difference was that you valued stepping out of your comfort zone and improving yourself.
Yeah.
And I like to stay where I was comfortable.
And you valued comfort.
I value comfort. And I valued self-improvement, but for me, self-improvement was like, how can I get even better at the things I'm already good at?
How can I improve on the things I enjoy?
And I didn't see it then. Like, I know this makes me sound like a major jerk, and like maybe I was, but it wasn't intentional.
You only killed the bride's father, that's all.
Well, I really didn't mean to.
Didn't mean to? You put your sword right through his head.
Oh, dear. Is he all right?
Well, and I think that's so powerful because there are so many good men out there. I mean, there's a minority of men and women that are not good.
They're just rotten people.
But there's so many good men and women out there that can relate to what you're saying and are like, that wasn't my intention. I wasn't trying to hurt people.
Yeah.
Right?
I can't tell you, like, the story of my life, but especially our marriage, is trying to make things better and making them worse. And I relate a lot to Peter Parker.
Everything Spider-Man touches comes to ruin.
And the biggest reason for me is because in order to make it better, I had to not change who I was, but awaken parts of me that were asleep, namely like the closer and the thinker. And I'll never forget one of the most painful things you ever said to me, not hurtful, but it was painful to hear because it was true, is you said that you didn't feel safe with me.
Yeah.
Which was really hard to hear because I am a safe person. No, like I'm not, and one of the best
You're not physically.
One of the best compliments you paid me recently was that I don't have a malicious bone in my body.
Yeah.
Like I don't have a mean bone in my body.
Yeah.
And so to hear, as someone who sees himself as a very kind person, compassionate person, giving person, loving person, to hear that you didn't feel safe with me was such a wake-up call, because I'm like, and at first it was hard for me to process. At first I'm like, what the hell are you even saying?
What the hell are you talking about? Who are you talking to?
I'm not verbally abusive, I'm not physically abusive, I'm not unfaithful, I'm not, like I listed all these things that I associated with the unsafe men.
Right.
And for you to feel safe, it was you needed a partner who did what he said he was going to do and didn't make excuses.
Well, and that leads to the title of this episode of, do we even want the same things?
Yeah.
So, story time, right? A catalyst.
Yay!
A catalyst for these conversations. I had a dream of traveling the world and living in different countries and things like that. And I'm the sort of person who has a dream and then creates a fail-safe plan with all the details and contingencies and things like that. And then I work towards it relentlessly, if you will. And there were so many. This is about a decade into our relationship, our marriage, and I was so tired from being the person that pushed. And while you would say yes, like
to things,
it was with trepidation. He generally said yes with trepidation.
It's like someone saying yes, they're gonna jump off the high dive, and then they spend forever on the high dive freaking out, and like taking a step closer to the edge of the high dive and then stopping and being like, oh, okay, and then and then backwards.
Then he doesn't ever jump. I just push him, and I'm like, you agreed to this. We were finally at a place where this could be a reality, and I was so tired of pushing and pulling, and I was just like, that's it. I'm giving up my dream / putting it on hold for another 15 years because I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
This is exhausting. Like, it can't always just be me. And we
15 years, because then there wouldn't be kids.
Because then there wouldn't be kids. It's like my commitment's done, and reevaluate life choices once children are adults. And we took a trip to
Paris and Rome. And
it was an adults trip. Like,
can I pause you and give you a little background on like my side of that?
Yeah.
So I spent growing up 19 years in the same home. And I grew up in Arizona, and my family did vacations to Utah, did vacations to California, repeat. And that was, and I never left the country. At 19, I went on a service mission, and I lived outside of the country. But then other than that, I came home, and it was still just, like when I went to Alabama for graduate school at Auburn, War Eagle, that was a big thing. Like, oh my gosh, I'm in the South. I'm on another side of the United States. And I was mentally at this point that Alicia's talking about. I was saying, listen to myself, listen self, Alicia's given and sacrificed so much for you and for your dreams. She wants to travel the world with our family and live months at a time in foreign places. I'm not talking about vacations. We're talking about going for 6 months to someplace and really immersing ourselves, right? And
doesn't that just sound like fun?
It does now. Like no, it honestly does now, and that's part of the story. But at the time, I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's terrifying because I just want to be able to go to Costco and get whatever I want.
And uncomfortable.
And I want to be
so many unknowns.
So mentally, this is what she wants, and she's supported you so much. You're going to support her. So like, logically or rationally, I was on board. Emotionally, I was still trepidation, it was still terror, but I was like, we're just gonna push forward, and this time I'm gonna jump off the high dive, she's not gonna push me, right? But it was still, in practical application of it, the practical application of it would have been that because my heart wasn't in it, because I was just like pushing myself to do it like I didn't want it, it would have been a miserable experience.
Yeah, so I had just put a pin in that dream. We went to Paris and Rome, and you were like, the world is such a cool place. There's so many fascinating things to see.
I love that trip.
The history is amazing.
Yeah. BDE, big dreamer energy.
Yeah, he was like, maybe it would be okay. And that like...
Well, and you eat the food in Paris and Rome, and that's gonna make you a traveler. It just will, like...
If you love food, and we love food.
And we love food.
One thing we have in common is we love food.
We're foodies, yeah.
Good food.
Yeah, we're very different, but that is like our big thing. Well, you saw me from being like a negative factor in traveling, like Jono's just gonna be anchor that I'm dragging to like...
I'm gonna have to push him off the high diving.
To he's neutral. Like he's not gonna make things happen, but he'll just like glide around with me and...
Yeah. And I was like, I can handle neutral. I can't handle, negative or extra weight, but I can handle neutral, right? And so within 6 months, we had downsized, made the changes to our business where we could be location independent, and we were now living in Southeast Asia, right? Once again, you didn't do any of the things for those things. You helped by watching the children.
I carried Michael all across Asia. I got ripped on that trip by carrying our 3-year-old everywhere. I did work and stuff, but actually...
That's not what I'm saying. The amount of preparation
I did no prep work, no.
To get a family and a home and a business ready to do any of those things.
I saw myself as like, no, I see the therapy clients. I fulfill on therapy. I'm built to carry heavy things, so I will carry luggage and kids, and definitely like do my part to be a parent. But as far as like planning, execution, like what you're talking about, making it happen, making sure that we had the flights, making sure that we had the places to stay, making sure that the kids were packed in, like I did none of that.
It's like for us to financially be able to do that at that point in our lives, like we had to rent out our home, Airbnb, and so there was all sorts of components to all of that.
Yeah. And that was me saying, well, this is your dream, Alicia, so I'm going to cheer you on and I'll be there for it. Right.
And so like construction had to happen, setting up a short-term rental, like all of those things had to happen.
How's that pedestal looking now, right? I'm fully off it. We talked about in an earlier video that because I'm like a YouTube therapist and people admire the advice or like the personality, like what you see on YouTube is very much me, but it's the best of me. And I don't like to be on a pedestal because then people are disappointed. So we're going full in to me being off the pedestal. I'm not proud of anything I'm not proud of any of this.
You absolutely leaned into your strengths, right? So when I spent days remodeling, doing construction to get a short-term rental ready, like you absolutely had, managed the children and did that, right?
I would.
You showed up and you did what I asked you to do. And I only asked you to do the things which I felt like I could rely on you to do.
Yeah. But we went, and we're in Asia, and that was scary and exciting all at once. All these fun things to do, and suddenly this workload that I took X number of hours a week to do when we were in the United States, I was doing it in about half the time. And you noticed.
It was a few weeks in. And I was like, your work isn't taking you nearly as long as it used to take you. What happened?
Yeah.
And in America, you had an office that you would go to and you would do your work, and I would assume, well, he's just doing the best he can. He's not nearly as efficient as I am. That's okay. I don't expect him to be me.
No.
But I'm just, and here's a component that I had learned in my previous marriages. Like, there's challenges. There's always going to be challenges. We're different people. We have different needs. We have different expectations, right?
Yeah.
And that the best thing that we can do is focus on our own growth, right? And our own struggles, right? And to quote, Christianity, right? Like, take the beam out of your own eye before you try and get the speck of dust out of someone else's eye.
Yeah.
Right? And so that had become a survival mechanism for me. And it had also, and I strongly believe in that principle. It creates great amount of growth.
Yeah.
Because if you're so busy focused on what someone else could do better, like, how are you growing?
Yeah.
Like, how are you improving?
What I discovered is that with the proper motivation, I have plenty of hustle.
Focus.
I thought when I was in the office that I'm like, well, this is just the best I can do to how I'm managing my time. But turns out when there's cool things to go see and do, like, I had a lot of motivation. And
a lot of incentive.
A lot of incentive, yeah. I was highly
incentivized.
incentivized to make sure I got my work done and to do it efficiently and to do it well. And I anticipated that would be a positive, that you'd be like, look at him stepping up and doing the things better. But it was actually, she was mad. She's like, you've been capable of doing it this efficiently and in this amount of time this whole time, and you haven't been doing it. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And she says, I'm done. On the next very special episode of Marriage Problems.
I was so angry.
We were fine until 2 weeks ago.